To Mr. Dykes.
The court has received your letter and has reviewed it.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to stand on that letter, Your Honor. I do, if it, with the court will permit, after this state makes any opening statement it wishes to make or however the court wants to proceed, I intend to put on his mother, who's in the courtroom, for a few minutes of testimony. Then he's going to testify for a few minutes, and I probably won't have anything further to say myself. So, thank you.
Ms. Sharpless?
Your Honor, I do believe in a sentencing hearing it's appropriate to let the defense go first and then the state respond to the defense's evidence.
You always have a right to make an opening statement.
Yes, sir.
You can.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Calls with.
Yes, Your Honor. May I call Miss Shamika Gordon, his mother?
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes,
Miss Gordon, good morning.
Good morning.
Would you please state your name?
Shamika Gordon,
And would you state your address?
953 McFarland, that's McFarlan Avenue, apartment 36, Fort Walton Beach, Florida, 32547.
Okay. And are you related to Mr. Dykes?
Yes, I'm his mother.
Okay. What would you like to tell the court? However you wish to tell it, please do so.
Well,
And feel free to look the court look the judge in the eye, because it's really for the court's consideration, whatever you have to say. Thank you.
well, Your Honor, good morning, sir. He's my only child. He's a great kid, and I believe in second chances. Normally in the courtroom and normally say in God we trust, and I'm a big believer in God. He's a great father. He has a 3-year-old little girl. He was just in last year for 4 months, and when he got out, most people that get out, you know, in his situation would go look for fast food. My son actually got a job at Foot Locker, you know, a good shoe store. You know, he went to work every day. He take care of his daughter. His days off, he went to spend time with his daughter, or we'll go together. Or the other grandmother would bring her to us, spend time with her. He's a funny character, as I would say. He's the only child. He's the only grandchild. He's the only great-grand. It's all that me and my mother have right now. Today is a pretty hard day for us. So, you know, we have me laughing and kikiing around the house on hard days. So, just him not being there has been pretty rough. Me just being able to work and come home into a blank house, because my mom works as well, and I kind of take care of her too. It's like, it's boring, it's sad, and he was the light of the light. You know, he'll call me at work sometime, what you doing? You know, I'm like, I'm at work. He's like, oh, so y'all busy? Or he'll, you know, Mom, can you bring me something to eat? You know, and he worked in Destin as well as I worked in Destin. He got off at 7 o'clock. He worked from 11 to 7. Every day he had to work. Sometimes he'll call in and be like, y'all need me. You know, he's a good salesman at his job. He's got a lot of friends. He like music. And I miss the fact that he'll walk around the house and just go to singing something out the blue. And I'd be like, okay, not today. But he'll still come in my face and kiki with me and want to play with me and stuff. And I miss it. He's my only child. I have nobody else. You know, my mom, it's hard taking care of her by myself, and he would be there on my days I have to work and he's off to make sure she's okay. So I believe in second chances, and this is his early years of his peak years, and he's just 20. He got a whole life ahead of him. And it's nothing that I wouldn't change for anybody else to be my kid but him. You know, it's all females in my family, and I honestly, when I was pregnant, I asked God, can I just give me a boy? It's too many girls. So I miss my kid. I miss him. 20, 30, 40, he's still my kid. He's still my baby at the end of the day.
Is there anything more you wanted to mention to the court?
I just want him home. Today is a hard day for us.
Yes.
It makes 19 years my little sister has been gone, and normally we'll get together and get balloons, you know, and send them up. and he'll rap a little song or something to her, and they was 2 years apart, so it was like they were really close growing up, and she only lived for 3 years, so it's hard.
Yes, ma'am.
It's hard without him being there, just goofing off on days like this.
Yes, ma'am. Can you confirm one thing that was in the pre-sentence investigation report? He didn't have a father in his life, is that
No,
correct?
he didn't. I'm mommy and daddy. Anything he needed, anything he wanted, I was there. I had to make sure he had from day one, and I did. He didn't have a father. He don't know his father. Never met him.
Yes, ma'am.
Never met him, and I know how that feels. So, him not having a male figure, I'm doing my best. At the end of the day, he could call me today and be like, "Mom, I need $20." I'll cash app it right to him. I have no excuse for that. If I don't have it, I'm going to my mom because she's not going to tell him no either. That's our only grandchild. So he's a pretty good kid. It just, everybody in the world make mistakes,
I don't have anything further, Your Honor.
State, have any cross?
No, Your Honor, I don't have any questions for Ms. Carter.
Thank you, ma'am.
Just for the record, if I just wanted to mention his brother, Braden Allen, is in the courtroom. This gentleman back here on my left, Your Honor. At this time, I would call the defendant, Mr. Dykes, Your Honor, if I may. Would the court allow him to proceed forward?
Clerk, would you please swear the witness?
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to
Mr. Medina.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Dykes, would you please state your full name?
I'm Maurice Dykes.
Do you have a letter that you prepared that you wish to read to the court?
Yes, sir.
Is that the way that you feel is best for you to express yourself right now, rather than me asking you questions?
Well, you can feel
Okay. Well, why don't you go ahead and read your letter, and if there's anything more that you need to add, we'll deal with that, okay? And make sure you read it so that it's real clear, okay?
Yes, sir.
I'm not saying you're a mumbler or anything. Now's the time to project to where everybody can hear it, okay?
Yes, sir. Honorable Judge Ketchum. Today, addressing the court, I'm asking for the court's grace and mercy. I'm incarcerated. I've had time to self-reflect and understand the severity of my crime and the consequences it comes with. As a maturing and learning young man, I take accountability and responsibility for my actions. Today, I'm asking for compassion and leniency in my sentencing, and that the court may look beyond my past so I can make a better future. I would like the court to know I'm a present and responsible father in my 3-year-old's life. And not as present as I should be while being incarcerated. My daughter has had to depend on her grandmother and her grandfather because of the absence of me and her mother, and now of me and her mother, and now I can't be the father I never had her. My mother has also been hurt by my current position financially and emotionally, and I'm ready to stop disappointing her and make her proud as her son. My grandma has also helped me. My mother raised me, and with her aging, she deserves the same. Upon my release, I'll be looking forward to going back to work and finishing school. Before my arrest, I was working and staying focused on my future. Because of the past I've created, my objective is to make my future better for me and my child. I'm ready to become an active and contributing citizen in society and leave my troubled life behind. I'm not ready to take care of my responsibilities full time and stop giving my family disappointment. So today I ask that more than my mistakes are looked at so I can make a better future again. I'm asking that prison or long time incarceration is not overlooked or swept under the rug, but that other options are looked at to help me become better for me and my family.
Mr. Dykes, having read your letter, is there anything more that is on your heart or your mind that you wish to tell the court?
I don't have any excuses or any, so I know some of my younger, troubles or, problems I had or, because I know in my PSI it seemed like things I did as a youth. You know, I don't got no excuses for that. You know, I don't have anything to say about that. I mean, I did it. I made mistakes, but you know, growing and seeing that all mistakes do have an effect on them. You know, all causes have an effect. I learn from it. You know, I'm not saying that I'm perfect or, you know, it's okay to do anything I did, because it's not. But I am saying now that, you know, I've learned and I've been trying to do better. I've been trying to stay out of trouble and be present for my child. Because being here, she don't got a daddy, she don't got a mom, she got grandparents. And I would like to be present in her life.
Let me ask you to address one other thing, and I'm going to put you on the spot. But one of the things that was concerned to probation when they wrote your pre-sentence investigation was that you didn't. They had the impression that you were not doing good in your pre-trial services reporting and so forth. There may be some more to that, or whatever your perspective is. I think it's important that you try to make clear to the judge your efforts in that regard. If you failed some on that, you need to try to, if you want to say anything, now would be a time to address that.
Yes, sir. When I was out maybe like 2.5 months. I got out the original life on pre-trial service, and I checked in. I go and check in every week. But my officer, Mr. Carrizzo, he gave me like 2 different locations. I could here, I could check in. He also told me if I missed him here, I could check in at his office, which was in Crescent. And for 2 weeks straight, he told me don't check in because I think it was Christmas. And another week, he told me like don't come, just call. And I did just that. And after those 2 weeks came, I came to check in. But I went to his office in Crescent. The week that I came to check in, which I took pictures of me coming to check in. Like I said to my mother, I came to check in his office. He wasn't there. They had a note saying that if you come to check in, just sign, which I did. And other than which, like I said, I don't have any excuses. I'm not here to make any pity parties for it. I did let it go dead. I take responsibility. I was poor at charging it and keeping my unit charged, but checking in, I made sure I did. Maybe it was, like I said, the time when he might have left for a year, he didn't see me, but I came to check in. I had documentation and he gave me like proof of me coming to check into his office.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Your Honor, the state doesn't have any questions for Mr. Dykes, just argument when it's appropriate.
Your Honor, may I just briefly just say from here is I really don't have anything to add from what's been testified to today as well as in my letter. I will just stand on my letter at this point in time. I know the court will take things into account as it sees fit. Thank you.
Ms. Sharp?
Your Honor, I just want to start by saying this is I sincerely a part of my job that I, shouldn't and don't find any joy in, because as background, every one of these previous cases he has, I was prosecutor on each one of those cases, except for the 21 CF case, which was no pros. So I have watched Mr. Dykes and his family progress through the juvenile system into the issues that we're here on today. I watched his family try to help Miriam do right. I really don't take any joy in having to tell the court that he has had so many chances that I cannot even look the court in the eye and justify him getting a chance at adult probation. I can't. He has been on juvenile probation where he was restricted from having guns while he was on probation. He, as the court sees laid out in that PSI, he had situations in those other cases where guns were involved Nerian should have known that guns are no good, and he does not need to possess guns. He doesn't need to be around guns. Guns can only lead to him getting in trouble. And he's been on juvenile probation. Looking back at the CJ cases, it looks like he was on the JDAP, given a chance at JDAP in 2017, and then progressed to being unsuccessful at JDAP to then being placed on juvenile probation. He was then, after some violations, was placed in a juvenile commitment program. He came out of that commitment program, and it looked like he was given another shot at juvenile probation after that. I just am refreshing my memory about what he had. I was going through that. He has been given multiple chances to get the services, to get help, to stay out of trouble. And unfortunately, he just has not done that. We're back here again with a violation of the law. Guns are very serious business, and I'm glad that he or someone else did not get hurt, but someone that's not old enough to have a carry and concealed permit, someone who has been in trouble because of guns before, someone who's been on probation should know that guns are only going to lead to them getting in trouble. He has inextricably intertwined himself with other people who are involved in the system. There is a 3-year-old child as a result of a relationship with someone with Tamia who's also involved in the system. And then he gets an adult charge and he's given a signature bond, and then we have trouble following the rules about charging the monitor. And I know he disputes the reporting aspect a little bit, but Mr. Robbins did file an affidavit with the court that said that there were issues with his reporting and the charging of the monitor. Your Honor, he has had several chances to do probation. He has had several chances to stay out of trouble and not be removed from the life of his child. At this point, he scores for prison. The only way the court can depart from the 19.95 months that is required under the sentencing guidelines is if the court gives a reason for a downward departure. I submit to the court that the only downward departure he'd be eligible for would be youthful offender, Your Honor. And as you know, any downward departure is a 2-part test. He is eligible for youthful offender status, but the court should not sentence him as a youthful offender. He's been on juvenile probation. He's been in juvenile programs. Your Honor, at this time, Mr. Dykes is out of the leniency that the court could show him. Unfortunately, the state is going to have to request that he does get the 19.95 months that the score sheet calls for. That's what I'm requesting from the court this afternoon.
I didn't want to interrupt Ms. Sharpless, and I don't doubt that she has the extensive background with him that she stated. I do respectfully question and object to the reference to prior firearms as a juvenile. I don't have her background on details, but I do see the charges. I don't see where the charges involved a firearm. It may be that some other people involved in some of those situations had something. I just don't see the basis for that in the record before the court on the PSI, so I respectfully question that. May I just talk to him for a second?
Let me ask, I think you're raising a good point. What are you referring to, Ms. Sharpless?
Your Honor, I do apologize. Actually, it looks like I think I was getting the case that actually was no cross mixed up. That did involve him. Obviously, that was no cross by the state and is not part of his criminal history. There was a robbery charge, and I apologize, Judge, but it does look like he provoked a robbery with no weapon, so we'll have to retract that statement.
Is there anything else I missed?
Mr. Medina.
I want to speak passionately because I have a 20-year-old son his same way. I know that even though I'm in his life, I fail, and I'm just sorry that this young man has been failed by not having the opportunity to have a mentor to maybe help him, and I'm hoping that things will go better in the future. Thank you.
The state's making a good point with regards to downward departure. You didn't object to that, so do you disagree with her legal contention that it would require a downward departure?
The youthful offender is an appropriate downward departure. You know, in and of itself, that's why we stated that.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What types of youthful offender programs or what is available under the youthful, and I'll allow the state to chime in on this, because I certainly understand the limitations that we often talk about, that you've got 6 years, but they often don't talk a lot about the different programs or facilities that are. Inform the court about that. What are you actually looking for? You're asking for him to be under youthful offender, and of course you're asking for probation.
Yes, Judge.
What are the options?
I must confess, I'm sure vastly more ignorant than the court on this issue. My understanding is that the probation that would be available to him would be adult probation. Is there any way that, because he's 20 now, may I just address the state probation if they can enlighten us?
I'd be interested to hear from the state probation.
Could you enlighten us in a situation where somebody's 20, gets adult probation for something, but their sentence is a youthful offender? Is there any special program or attention, a special officer or mentoring, or how does that work?
There's no special officer or mentor. The only youthful offender I've ever had under my supervision, he did the boot camp in prison, and upon release, coming to probation, he just had his court costs, his substance abuse evaluation. There wasn't any special conditions tied to that.
What type of programs would be available on probation if he were sentenced to youthful offender or probation by the state? What's available as far as substance abuse?
Substance abuse, we could recommend him to inpatient, intensive inpatient. We could do outpatient. We can recommend anger management.
Who does your outpatient substance abuse?
We recommend either Bridgeway or Pattison. We can recommend Project Hope. Keaton over near Pensacola, Phoenix down by Citra for the more inpatient. Jada House is usually recommended, but I have to keep reiterating that's a halfway house thing. But those are the most common substance abuse treatment facilities.
And how would the court know which would be the best?
I guess that would be up to the history of given. My recommendation would be substance abuse evaluation 3060. Send them to, I would recommend either Pattison or Bridgeway, and whatever they would recommend for the appropriate treatment.
May I add one thing, Your Honor? I apologize, because it's just a thought, and I did, as I was doing my letter, I just wanted the court to be aware that something that just might deserve mentioning, and that house arrest, as the court calls it, or community control as state probation, is certainly an option. It might be a very good option, especially when there was a concern about failure to comply with pretrial services. As the court is very well aware, house arrest is a super hard imposition and commitment on behalf of the defendant. So it shouldn't be entered lightly. I hope he could make it through that, but it would be certainly an option for the court to consider. Thank you.
What are the reporting requirements under community control?
He will have to report weekly to his probation officer. He must submit a schedule for the week. He has to abide by that schedule as it's written. He is allowed 30 minutes travel time to and from his employment, or if he's doing community service work.
But would that necessitate a GPS? Is that automatic under community control?
No, sir, that does not necessitate a GPS.
And Your Honor, can I chime in here?
Sure.
Just Officer Becker, do we try to keep the GPSs for people who are on sex offense probation generally?
Try to keep them towards more of the sex offense probation, but the more intensive cases would, for regular community control would necessitate one. But I think with this young gentleman here, GPS wouldn't be necessitated.
And Your Honor, I think it's important for the court to note that the substance abuse evaluation and treatment 3060 is akin to, as Your Honor is aware, and in juvenile court we would order a task evaluation and comply with its recommendations. They're almost the same thing, which he would have been ordered to do pursuant to his juvenile probation. And inpatient, as far as inpatient places that he could go to for the marijuana use, which is mentioned in the PSI, Keaton would have to evaluate him and say that he is eligible. And because there's a burglary of a dwelling, it is no assault, no battery, and there's a robbery charge on his priors, that it is no weapon, but I think maybe one of those charges will prevent him from going to Keaton. I don't know that for sure, but it's possible. So I just can't tell the court if that's something that we can even do, if that's even a possibility. That's why I was suggesting to the court, I think we've exhausted all the specialized treatment that we can give here.
And just for the record, as the court's aware, but we're talking about a marijuana issue. I just wanted to be clear on the record. There was no indication of any hard drugs. Thank you.
Bring the defendant up to the podium, Mr. Medina. Mr. Dykes, I'm gonna start, and I hope Mr. Medina isn't offended by what I'm about ready to say. I'm gonna start by commenting about your defense counsel's comment that it was only marijuana, not, quote, hard drugs. See, like Ms. Sharpless, I've been deeply involved with the juvenile system for a long time, for the better part of the last decade. And Mr. Medina hit on kind of a pet peeve of mine. And that's referring to marijuana as not a hard drug. You need to understand, not because of this court, you need to understand. Marijuana is a real problem. I know that's not what the street wants to tell you. And there's a huge difference between young people and adults. But your brain ain't an adult. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
The physical development of the brain doesn't end until about age 24. I'm talking about just growing, okay? And it's dramatically affected by marijuana. And it wasn't stated like this in here, but you've probably got a marijuana addiction problem. I don't know if you've recognized that, but this thing's going to haunt you if you don't deal with it, and it really affects what you do with your life. There are two things that jumped out. One was the marijuana, and one was the firearm. Okay, obviously the firearm is the reason why you're here. And look, I ain't gonna preach to you about the firearm. If you ain't got it figured out now that firearms are gonna get you into trouble, there ain't nothing I can say to you. I mean, firearm can only lead to bad. And really now for you, because you have it on your record as it relates to that. And Ms. Sharpless is right. You really, honestly, under the system, you don't deserve another chance. You don't. I don't really care whether you deserve something or not. That's not what I'm making. I'm looking at one thing, and that is what's best, not just for you, but for the community. Because if I send you down for 19 months, you're going to be coming back out in 19 months. You're going to be a part of this community. I'm concerned about our community and whether or not you're going to be able to survive and to thrive in that community, whether you're going to get into no trouble. And even though you don't, quote, deserve to have it, I'm going to give you another chance. I'm going to give you another chance. There's not any really a good reason other than I just see some things in this record. One of the things that really jumps out at me here, and it's not only you, but your family. Your families are hard workers. That goes a long way. That's a big thing. You to be proud of that. Your employer came and spoke about it. I wish young people, and again, I don't mean to refer to you as a young person because you're an adult. I wish that's one of the biggest problems today is that they make it harder for kids, for young people to work. Because work ain't just about getting money. Work's about getting up and going in and having pride in something and having a reason to get up every day. Even if it ain't a perfect job. And you got a good job. And they said they'd take you back, and I'm counting on that. So I'm going to order you 1 year community control followed by 2 years of regular probation. That's 3 years. I'm going to tell you, and one of the reasons why I'm doing this is you're going to either fail or you're going to do well.
Sir.
And I'm going to give you a statistic that makes me sad. We're here trying to have a thing. We put people on probation every day. One of the first things I did when I met with probation, I rotated into the adult felony division, is I asked them, what's the success rate for probation? What's the success rate? What's your guess? What's the percentage?
Like 10%.
Yeah, more than that. 50%. Well, I'll put it in, that's not a good percentage. That means that half the people that go on probation violate and end up coming back in because you violate probation. I mean, I'm not talking about some technical thing, but you violate probation, you're going to go to prison.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. But you got to try to get a decent program and try and figure out how you can deal with marijuana. The marijuana affects your brain. You can go on the internet. It's the biggest lie. It makes me so mad because they're trying to sell you a bill of goods because they talk about medical marijuana. Medical marijuana must be good for you, right? I'm telling you, particularly for young people, it's a lie. They know it all. There's not any statistics. There are no studies that say that it's good for you. I mean, you're a well-formed brain, 30 years old, that's different. It's not good for you when you're 30 years old, but it ain't as bad as when your brain is being developed. Because it has an ongoing effect. I try and tell people, you can either listen to me, yeah, oh, Judge, just talk. That's something you got to deal with, you know? You seem like a bright guy. And, you know, your employer, you've got a family that supports you, you've got some positives going for you. But what you got to do on this, you got to make your probation officer your friend. That's got to be your best friend. You don't need to be in conflict with them. You need to bend over back. You need to go above and beyond. All you have to do is stay. It's like a job. I used to tell you, I may have told you this in juvenile court. Say something that sounds silly that's very profound. Half of life is showing up. Just showing up. You know how many kids flunked out of school if they went to school every day? I've never met one. Have you ever met one? Have you ever met a single one of your youth that flunked out of school that went to class, went to class on every time? No, it doesn't happen. And if you show up at work, heck, they're pleased as punch if they got a worker that shows up every day. You're going to have to really screw up to get fired from a job when you show up every day. Same thing with probation. Got to show up. And it starts with a telephone call.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Community control is house arrest. Your mama says all you do, you work, you come home, you be with your child, we give you a chance to do that.
Yes, sir.
Okay? It's not easy. But we're also going to do the substance abuse evaluation, and I hope to heck that they get you in a program where you can sit down and talk about it and, you know, try and deal with this. Just understand that this is an issue. You may want to try and do that. If you try and do that, you know, you're risking going to prison, because that, trust me when I tell you, man, that is the next step. That ain't a maybe step. Okay? I'm not trying to threaten you. I'm just telling you, being honest with you. Okay? But you're gonna have to be the one to show up, and it's got to start right here, where you show up and do this. Mr. Medina?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm sorry to interrupt. There's, Mr. Probation Officer made a point, and I just wanted to ask clarification. You mentioned a 30-minute commute with community control. I'm kind of concerned about his housing, especially during tourist season. It may be difficult, for instance, to get from Fort Walton Beach to some, shopping center or wherever he might work.
I can't help but believe that probation isn't going to work with you to determine how long he takes to travel to his work, that they're not going to accommodate that. I'm telling you, I'm sure that's true.
We're more than willing to assist the gentleman.
Yeah. Okay. I just didn't want to be overly literal, but it's a fault of character, sir.
I understand. Where's the Foot Locker? Where's the Foot Locker store?
In Destin Commons on Legendary
Destin
Drive.
Commons?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Miss.
Yes. Your Honor, Ms. Sharpless was making a point. Would the court be willing to state on the record that the basis for the downward departure is youthful offender?
Yes. I mean, I think the court's required to do that. There has to be a downward departure, and the only downward departure, I'm not hearing any objection that this youth qualifies as a youthful offender.
Correct.
So I am making the ruling. Thank you for clarifying, because I meant to do that. That this is a downward departure based on youthful offender, and so he's being ordered to be on community control and probation based on the youthful offender.
And the court is finding that he is eligible for youthful offender and that he should get the youthful offender downward departure. Is that correct?
Correct.
And Your Honor, what adjudication is the court rendering? Withheld or adjudicate guilty?
I'm gonna do an adjudication of guilt. I think that's appropriate. I think it's got to be on, and that what that's going to do. That does affect you, and I understand that. What it's really going to do is if you get another weapons charge, it's gonna have consequences. So don't let somebody, convince you that anything dealing with firearms are a good thing. You got a child, you got family that's supported, you got a child that's depending on you, you got work, you got a lot to live for. And it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Some days, day by day by day. You got to get up and you have to make that follow up with the contact. Like I said, you have to realize probation, folks. Let me tell you, probation, they want their people to be successful. They're not trying to screw you. If you walk halfway, chance you probably find most of the probation officers I know are going to walk halfway to meet you. You got to walk halfway to meet them by way of following up, whether it be your phone call, or checking in with the officer, whatever the heck the requirements. Okay. Now, this is a 1 year and a 2 years. But you do have the right. I don't think it's in the law. I don't think we have to make special comment. I'm saying you would have the right possibly for some early termination if you're, abide by, you've done your substance abuse evaluation and follow through with that and pay your court costs and fines, etc. What are the court costs? But if you paid all that, you haven't violated, maybe in a couple of years you can secure a term and walk you through. I don't think we have to specifically state that. That's under the law, correct?
Yes, Your Honor. My understanding is that the statutory early termination or administrative probation alternative is not applicable to community control. Correct. On the subsequent 2-year period, that if you completed at least one half of that and had no violations, that you would be eligible for either early termination or administrative probation at probation's discretion.
And that's what I'm thinking. So the first year, you got to deal with that, and then you're going into 2 years probation. You might be able to cut that in half if you at that point done what you need to do. Okay?
Yes, sir. Just for the record, Your Honor, yes. I hate to say it, but PD fees, there's a court imposing standard
yes.
PD fees.
Yes.
And just for Officer Becker, Your Honor, so the court is adjudicating him guilty. It's ordering 1 year community control followed by 2 years of probation. The court is ordering the substance abuse evaluation and treatment 3060
Correct.
With random UAs. Your Honor, the state's requesting that he be trespassed from the block where this incident occurred. It is a nightclub and he has no business being there anyways, so I'm requesting no trespass there.
I'm not in agreement.
So,
yes, sir.
when will I be released?
When will you be released?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
And Your Honor, that's a good point. You need to immediately, when you get out, go immediately to 13 Kelly Avenue in Fort Walton Beach to begin your community control. It begins today.
Okay.
They're going to need an address from Mr. Dykes.
Yes.
Yes.
Do we have an address?
It's going to be Fort Walton Beach, and are you going to be living with your mother right off the bat, Mr. Dykes? Sir? Are you going to be staying with your mother tonight? They got to know where you are every single day, every single hour.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Do we need to get an address?
Would you state your address, if that's okay, Your Honor?
953.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And Your Honor, I just want to make clear that no weapons, no firearms is a condition of probation. Also, that he has been adjudicated guilty of a felony, which means he cannot possess firearms. That is another charge.
That's even after the probation.
Yeah.
period. You can't-
Yeah, you're, no more firearms or weapons.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Sir?
Thank you.
And we'll reconvene at 1:30.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All rise, please. Court is in recess.